Welcome to the Boot Report, episode 2. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and we are going to hop straight into weekly news. Now, one of the things that I think everybody saw on the weekly news was Ashraf Hakimi wearing a pair of Under Armour Shadow 3s. Now, if those of you who haven't seen my review and playtest of these, I absolutely love this football boot. There are a few things that I might change, might make the knit a little bit on the thinner side, might make the sole plate a little bit more suitable for AG and FG. Hakimi seemed to have other ideas, and that was a completely custom sole plate that we didn't really get a great look of. It was one of those sole plates that in photos, it looks like he has the largest and most aggressive traction. It almost looks like OG Predmania style SG studs, although it was way more than just 6. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Most likely it's just a custom FG sole plate based on what he's worn in the past. He obviously comes from an F50 and Speed Portal. I say the F50, but just F50 meaning the entire lineage of Adidas speed boots in the past. So that's what he's worn up until this point. And then for PSG, he's now wearing the Shadow 3. So I'm curious to know, in terms of news, is that a big piece of news for you guys? Are you surprised? Are you shocked? Under Armour seems to have been taking the market sort of by the horns a little bit in terms of their latest releases. I'm sure whatever comes after Magnetico, whether it's Magnetico 5 or whatever new model they decide to call it, it's going to be pretty sweet. So that is weekly news number 1. Now, as far as latest colorway drops, here is a couple that are going to be super interesting. And thank you to whoever made the comment last week about putting pictures up on screen. Don't worry, we're getting there one step at a time. It's a totally new format for me. So hopefully, guys, enjoy this. Also, make sure you go and subscribe before we hop into the rest of the news and leaks and everything like that. Really helps the channel. And more than 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed. So it's totally free, and go do that. Thank you very much. Okay, so Predator Absolute Mega Ride Lifestyle has leaked. Those should be coming out pretty soon, if not have already dropped. The Absolute was a boot back in the mid 2000s, so 2006, I believe they released, 2004 maybe. And the Predator Absolute Mega Ride is essentially like their, not boost material, but you know when Nike had the Shox shoes? Those were like the hype back in the early 2000s. It's Mega Ride is basically the Nike Shox of Adidas. And so it's basically the upper construction and design of the Predator Absolute, but it's got that little shock heel area basically. And they have other Mega Ride shoes as well. And they're kind of cool lifestyle shoes, which we'll get into a little bit later as well, because I want to talk about some really interesting creators that I've stumbled across that make some pretty incredible pieces of custom footwear that combine football boots and heritage and style and all that stuff. So that is coming up as well. The other one that has released, I don't know if they've actually released it yet. Even if they have, no one's going to hear about it. But they did a Friends Beckenbauer, like the Kaiser limited edition in this month, which is it's a Bayern Munich specific Franz Beckenbauer Copa Mundial, and there's only 74 pairs in the world. I think they're going to be super limited. They're not going to look that much different other than having, I don't actually have a pair of Copa Mundials with me, but regardless, kind of where that Copa is right in that area. I realize this is an Under Armour boot. Yes, I know. But right here, oh, actually, here we go. So here's a Copa, right? So Copa, and it usually says the Mundial or Copa right here, and it'll probably say something like Kaiser, or it'll have Kaiser on the tongue or something like that. That will be a very, very cool homage to Franz Beckenbauer. To be honest, I don't really care about the launch too much, but it is an interesting one, and I will put some pictures up on screen of the original ones that he wore. And so I'd imagine that this super limited pair will be for Adidas collectors and potentially like C-suite executives and other people who are in that world. I don't think they're even going to be sold outside of Germany, and you probably can't get them outside of Germany because, again, less than 100 pairs in the world, crazy, crazy rare, and they're probably going to be not that much different than the regular Copa Mundial. So are they worth it for me? Absolutely not. Next up on the list is the Predator Mania Red and Silver. Now, that's sort of a leak, sort of a launch. They launch, I believe, in a couple days as of the filming of and release of this video. I believe in Australia, they release on Tuesday of next week. It's now currently Sunday/Monday, depending on where you are in the world. So I would definitely recommend checking those out. They're going to be the same as the champagnes that released recently, and also the classic ones, the black, red, and white ones. So as far as a construction goes, you're not going to get anything special in terms of K-leather and other things, but those are dropping really soon, and there's going to be pretty limited pairs of those worldwide as well. I realize that they have released that pair in 2019 as well. They did the same colorway release, but it is a very cool pair of football boots, and of course, it's iconic because you had players like Zidane, Beckham in 2002 when that original Mania in red released. It was the pair that he wore for England in the World Cup of 2002 when Brazil won. So that's a cool pair of football boots. So David Beckham wore them, and Zidane wore them, Raul wore them, and I think I'm forgetting one other really iconic player. Needless to say, it was a very, very popular football boot. In that particular red colorway was also really cool because it was like the World Cup colorway of that year, and it's hopefully going to be a pretty cool remake. And the next one that has released as well was Charlie. So Charlie is a Mexican sportswear brand, for those of you who don't know, and they released a launch pack in this kind of blue colorway, two women's colorways in aqua and coral, and one in black as well. So they've got a couple new Stinger colorways. The Stinger actually looks pretty cool, and I think it comes in a laceless model as well, or one of the women's colorways are laceless, but those are pretty cool as well. I'd love to get a pair of Charlie boots in. I also don't think they're all that expensive either. I think they take sort of a takedown price point, but with some of the sort of modern amenities that you would get from the regular tech, if you will, which is pretty cool. And then Diadora launched their Brazil Pro, which is the beautiful white, black, and gold colorway of their Brazil Pro series, which is kind of their iconic, more classic. The Diadora Brazil is like the very classic football boot. And then, of course, they make derivatives of that with the Brazil Elite and Brazil Elite Veloce and some of the other boots in that lineup. But the Brazil Pro is like their Copa Mundial competitor, their Speciale from Umbro competitor. It's very much like super, super classic, very, very minimalist, I guess you could say, all Italian leather. They look amazing. Not my favorite. I probably won't get a pair just because the boot itself is cool, but it's not really my vibe. But a cool launch, needless to say. And then finally, we got the Pan Balancer Touch. And the reason I'm smiling is because this is a Thai company. So actually not too far from where I am in Australia. And this is essentially a carbon copy of the Hypervenom 3 in white and blue, that Clash colorway. So Hypervenom 3, obviously, my favorite boot of all time. And the colorway that was light blue and white, you'll see pictures up on screen, of course, but light blue and white. And they essentially copied the Hypervenom 3, which is super cool. And I'm trying my best to get a pair in, but that is a pair of boots that I cannot wait to test out. Partially because I love the Hypervenom 3, but also because I just think that a brand that just goes, well, if you're going to discontinue a boot that everyone loved, we're just going to take over and make it really popular again. I think that's cool, and I think it's brilliant. So why not? So Pan Balancer Touch, Pan, and then Balancer Touch. Very cool. But it is a carbon copy of that Hypervenom 3. It's pretty wild. You look at it and you're like, I have seen this before. I don't know if there's any sort of weird like trademarking or legal issues that they would get into. I'm not sure. That would be interesting to find out at some point, but needless to say, it's a very cool looking football boot, as it was when it was a Nike football boot, and hopefully they feel somewhat similar to the real version. So I will be definitely messaging them or somebody in Thailand to see if I can get a pair. Now moving on to the boot leak releases. This is an interesting segment. We're going to talk about everything to do with leaks that I've seen in the last couple weeks, more like last week, given that now we're on a weekly schedule for the podcast. We are going to start off with a FC Barcelona women's player, Vicky Lopez, who was wearing a whiteout pair of F50 laceless prototypes. So, a couple things on this. One is brands on a more grander scale, brands have gotten a lot better realizing that. Do I have them here? Well, this is close enough. Okay. So imagine this had black laces, right? This is a Scudetta from Sokito. When a brand puts a blackout pair of football boots on let's say the new Sokito Scudetta 2.0, Sokito puts a pair of blackouts on their player, and that player goes out and plays in broad daylight on a firm ground pitch, right? Nothing weird about that. However, what does get weird is that black with broad daylight stands out. You can actually see all the little creases, all the little lines, where the materials come, the texture of the knit, all that stuff. I think what has happened is brands have started to realize that whiteout boots in broad daylight, I wonder why you can't see anything on them. Guess why? Because it's really hard to expose for an all white surface, just out in broad daylight. In the same way that if I put a blank piece of white paper in front of you, you're not going to see any texture. So even with, let's assume we'll get to these in a minute, but let's assume this was an all white pair of football boots, even with some of these gold accents, everything was white. It would probably be pretty difficult and annoying to tell about what the texture was like, what the materials were like, are there any visual changes? It's the same thing that car companies do when they have prototypes on the road. They do all sorts of wacky like paint texturing so that you can't tell where the body lines are. And by making an all white pair of boots, you make it really difficult for a camera to actually capture the texture. So that's like overarching. The way that prototypes are going now is more all white. So I'm actually going to put on my bracelet, which I forgot to put on earlier. It says passion. So Vicky Lopez was wearing the F50 mid-cut laceless model. Now, a couple things are interesting about this. One is that it was mid-cut still. So the women's F50 exists, obviously, in today's market. I haven't seen a whole lot of them around, although Ultra, I know, still carries them. I've seen them on like soccer.com. All the major websites carry them. I just don't hear a lot about them, which is, I don't know what it means, but I don't know. The new F50 right now, the F50 Elite, in my opinion, the women's version is cool, but I think that whole series just is not really doing great, in my opinion. So I think it's better off that they shift around the material. I mean, if they were to make the whole series just hybrid touch like they did with the F50 Messi, that would be pretty sensational, in my opinion. So maybe that's what they do. Who knows? Bottom line is they were all white and they were laceless. So is it possible that F50 women's, or the women's cut edition, or even just an edition of the F50 becomes laceless and high cut? It's what Tequila was, right? They made the low top laced models. Makes sense. That's pretty standard. Like every football boot in my background. And then Tequila went, we'll do laceless and we'll do high cut. Gives you a little bit of extra lockdown. Doesn't let all the little pellets in, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be interested if they do decide to go with a high cut laceless model. Honest to God, here's what I would like to see from Adidas. Buckle up. You ready for this? I want to see a high cut laceless F50. If they're going to do a laceless model, make it high cut. I want to see a low cut plus model with laces and potentially a knit tongue. So just put laces on this, do something kind of fun, make it more, maybe make it even more aggressive from a traction standpoint, etc. Change the heel because it sucks. And then I want to see the basic F50. Can have that compression fit tunnel system. I don't care. Just low top and laced. So do the fancy one, low top and laced. Do another fancy one, laceless and high cut. And then do the basic version in whatever regular tongue, burrito style tongue, empanada style. No, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I would do. I would honestly recommend. So Vicky Lopez, absolute baller, but she was wearing mid-cut laces. Next, we move on to the Kylian Mbappe Custom. So that one is coming out soon. It's very, very similar to the recent launch of the Nike United pack, which was that all purple. It wasn't really camouflage, but they had sort of like an interesting geometric pattern inside the purple in different hues of purple. So some lighter pieces, some lower pieces. That was pretty cool. As far as a pack goes, it's pretty to me. I have so much colorway fatigue at this point. We'll get into those in just a second because there's another Adidas pack coming out that looks identical to the one they just released. Needless to say, the Kylian Mbappe Custom are purple and gold, and they will have his KM initials on there. My guess is they are going to release sometime in the next month. I think he was either wearing a United pack colorway that looked identical or he was wearing the actual release. Excuse me, which means it's going to come out a little bit earlier than I think it will. My guess is it would be early April, where it's March 21st as the filming of this podcast. So I would guess it's probably going to be sometime in early April that he'll get that custom Kylian Mbappe colorway, as opposed to wearing some of the new cosmic speeds that are rumored to be coming out pretty soon in those solid, like there's like a yellow one, there's a orange one or a red one, and then there's maybe like one other super solid reflective colorway, which look really cool. But Mbappe, I think at this point is sort of, they need to build him up as the new face of the Superfly / Vapor, and I think they're not doing a great job at that right now, especially if they create a colorway that's the same as the United pack. Don't get me started. I think Nike needs to figure out their colors and just go back to the basics. But needless to say, Kylian Mbappe Custom coming soon. I guess this actually, as of the filming of this video, I had written this script 2 days ago, and the Predator Teamgeist has just launched. So technically it's not a leak anymore, but they have launched the 2006 World Cup ball again in a slightly different variation. It's like changed ever so slightly, updated a little bit. Plus they've done the Predator in the Teamgeist colorway. For those who don't know, Teamgeist was sort of the Adidas language and logoing that they did in and around their 2006 World Cup, which was in Germany, I believe. And it was really, really cool, very wavy on a lot of the kits. And it was the ball was one of the most insane, dipping, swerving footballs that you'd ever played with. The Teamgeist was amazing. It was so much fun to play with. Felt almost like a balloon in a lot of ways. Not quite as unpredictable as the Javelani, which was the next World Cup in 2010 in South Africa. That ball is renowned as being a goalkeeper's nightmare. The Teamgeist ball was definitely up there in term. That's probably second on my list of balls that are just insane to knuckle with, and it was absolute nightmare for goalkeepers because the ball would be coming straight at you, and even if it was spinning, it would still kind of wobble in the air, and so it made goalkeepers really wary of where they were and how their feet were planted, and it was just a whole thing. You saw a lot of goals scored in the 06 and the 10 World Cups where a ball would come, rocket from somewhere, not very much spin, and you saw the ball kind of dip and swerve in a way that was aerodynamically really unique. So anyway, Teamgeist, I could riff on forever. I think it's so cool looking. I would love to get one of those balls in just to have either in the background or to actually play with. It'd be super, super fun. So I am going to try to get a pair, or not a pair. I'm not going to get the Predators, but I will try to get the football because I think that would be super, super fun to get my hands on. So those actually released. That's technically not a leak anymore. So excuse me, I should have moved that up to the recent release section. The final one we are getting next week is the Adidas Celestial Victory Pack, which come out on the 26th or 27th, I believe, of March. I'm not actually sure if that's correct. That's just what I've heard. And they are identical to the Mystic Victory. Mystic Victory, Cosmic Celestial Victory, Cosmic Color. Like, what is this bullshit? I do not get me started on the amount of, like, they're just either number one, whoever's okaying all these colorways is too much of a pushover to say no, because first of all, a lot of them are really ugly, in my opinion. And second of all, and they're not going to age well because Adidas knows these are going to go on the resale market to basically be like the sloppy seconds of a Teamgeist colorway or a Polar Victory color. Polar Victory was sick. All white, silver, black. No problem. No problem. Blue accents as well. Teamgeist, white, black, and gold. Amazing. But you've got this Celestial Victory. I mean, let's just talk Mystic Victory for a second because it just launched. It's hideous looking. It's hideous looking. Even the Copa in that electric yellow and black heel area, man, like, what do you do? Like, fine, that's okay. It's not bad, but it's like, meh. But the other two, the F50 and the Pred, are disgusting. And I would say, based on the photos, same with the Celestial Victory pack. Although, to be fair, the Copa actually is the best out of those three again. And then the other two, like the Copa's like a silver and blue, I believe. And then the Predator is like a bunch of wonky colors, and the F50 is a bunch of wonky colors. And I'm so tired of Adidas bringing out, it feels like a new colorway every second week or every fortnight. It's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? There's no reason for that. Make colorways that people actually want, not just these random, oh yeah, it just irks me. Anyway, and moving on to the final little weekly news is the Hakimi boot swap. So as I mentioned before, I want to dive a little bit deeper into this because this is really interesting to me. As somebody who's been to Under Armour headquarters prior to all this stuff happening, kind of learning about a lot of this stuff as well, a lot of these new players who are coming into the Under Armour brand, which is really sweet. Trent left, and obviously Trent left a huge hole because Trent probably cost Under Armour a lot of money, which means they have money to sign people like Ferran Torres and Hakimi and Fermin and all these other players who are now going over to the Under Armour brand, Rudiger, for instance, right? And so Hakimi moving over, to me, not to say that the other players are second rate, and I would say that, you know, a starting center back for Real Madrid is obviously a pretty big signing for them, but Hakimi is like debatably one of the best defenders, wing backs in the world. Rudiger's not even close to the top center back in the world, in my opinion, and as I say that, I know probably you guys are calling bullshit because I'm wearing a Barca jersey right now, but genuinely speaking, like, he's not even close to the best center back in the world. And so having a player like Hakimi, who's dominant on the international level and dominant at the club level in a pair of Under Armours, despite them being heavily customized, looks pretty sweet. So at least from the photos, what it looks like is he has a near stock or stock upper. Definitely the colorway obviously matches this one. But then his sole plate is completely different. And I didn't get a good look either in the game. I tried to look at some game footage and I couldn't really tell if he was wearing the carbon plate or whether they've just done a completely new sole plate for him with a way more aggressive stud traction. Like, y'all sometimes in the comments are like, is this even good enough for FG? It's so aggressive and maybe we shouldn't wear it ever. Dog, look at the photos that I'm putting up right now. Those studs make these studs look like a freaking turf model. Like, those are ridiculously aggressive, and it's probably to his standards, right? Like, that's the kind of stud pattern that he wants, right? Which is very, very cool. So really interesting that he went over. If we see him in more advertisements for them, wearing a lot of their street style stuff, maybe some sneakers, maybe some running shoes, etc., that'll be really, really cool. I think him as a player being an Under Armour athlete is going to be sort of fits, in my opinion, their ethos of like athlete first and then sports second almost. Like, I know that they haven't coined that phrase. That's just me sort of putting that on them. I feel like there's Under Armour with, you know, The Rock and some of these other brands that they've got. They're very focused on the athlete, right? It's sport aside, it's about the athlete. And to me, that is a really, I mean, Hakimi's one of the most outrageously gifted athletes in the world, let alone footballers, right? So I think that kind of fits the bill. And it is cool to see him in a pair of shadows. It's definitely different than an F50, a speed portal, speed flow, all that stuff, but it's interesting and I kind of like it. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of Hakimi and the switch. All right. talking boots. This is the second section, boot talk. We're going to talk all about football boots. And today we are going to start a segment called the weekly boot comparison. Yes, you heard that right. I'm going to do a comparison every week and tell you who the winner is. So let me grab my 2 football boots that I'm going to be comparing this week. Okay, so we have I'm actually going to get one of each. We have the Copa Pure and we have the Copa Icon. Now, a lot of you guys have been wondering and asking, Noah, when are you going to compare these 2 boots? I might do a full-scale comparison video of these 2 boots because I think they are absolutely fantastic. One is better than the other, in my opinion, but let's do a full-scale comparison. So I'm only going to say this once, but for the rest of the weekly boot comparisons, you are going to get a sole plate comparison, a leather quality or an upper quality comparison, a comparison of the upper as a whole, the heel, the comfort, the performance, the lace area, and is there an X factor around it? And of course, I will be comparing price as well, but that's going to be in the introduction. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the comparison between the Copa Icon 2 and the Copa Pure 3. Before I get into it, let me know down in the comment section below, which one do you think is going to win? Because these are both pretty darn good football boots, in my opinion. I would be happy wearing one of them over the other, but I'd probably be pretty happy wearing either one. Let's talk sole plate. This one's going to be pretty easy. In terms of sole plates, you have a firm ground only sole plate on the Copa Pure 3, and then you have the AGFG. It's one of Adidas' first hybrid stud patterns that they say you can wear it on both surface areas on the Copa Icon. Now, as far as flexibility goes, right, you got a little bit of snapback. It is maybe not as great as I would like it to be, especially at the hiked price point, but this one, a lot more oomph to it, if you will, and definitely a sole plate that I think has a lot more vibe to it. It feels a lot more stable. It feels really confident underfoot. And the stud pattern, albeit it being pretty similar to the Icon, I think is just a little bit more aggressive. And so even though it does have conical studs, you still have some of the bladed studs in certain areas that really make this boot this sole plate very, very fun to play in. So for me, for the sole plate, the Pure 3 actually wins out, probably to no surprise. Before I do move on though, just for context, the Copa Icon 2 in US dollars is 180. So 180 US dollars. And in the US, the Copa Pure 3 is $250. So there's a $70 price difference between the 2 boots. The interesting part is that in Australia, the Icon is 300 Australian dollars and the Copa Pure 3 is 320 Australian dollars. So it's a $20 difference, or, oh, by the way, like 12 USD difference between these 2 boots. So depending on where you are in the world, depending on where you are buying your football boots, price does matter, right? If you're in the US, there's a pretty significant price difference between the 2, whereas going up an extra $20 to get a Copa Pure 3 might be the move that you want to do because you want whatever it offers over the Icon 2, but we'll get there in just a second. Now moving on to leather quality. Now you get basically the hybrid of, well, it's called fusion skin, but the hybrid calf skin leather with the texturing here that's synthetic on the fusion skin. So you get sort of this hybrid material, whereas basically, and I guess in a similar way, but it's less treated, you get the calf skin leather and the synthetic leather here on the midfoot. But from a leather quality perspective, there's really no debate in my mind that the Pure 3 has the better leather quality. It's nice and thin. It feels incredible on feet, like when your feet are in there. On ball, the touch is fantastic, and it really does a good job. That's not to say that the leather quality of the Icon 2 is bad, because I actually love this new, it's still a little bit plush, so it errs on the side of like Morelia 2 vibe, but not quite as aggressively pillowed as the first generation. So that's something to keep in mind. If that was your favorite boot because it protected you from all of the studs, no, it won't. But if that's what you think, this is the boot to go for, although it isn't as padded as the Icon 1 or Gen 1. So in my opinion, in terms of leather quality, goes to the Pure 3. Now moving on to the upper as a whole. This is talking about how the upper moves, how the upper feels when you get your foot into the boot, and really anything but the heel area. So everything forward from the heel area. I do really like Fusion Skin. I think Fusion Skin is a really nice upper. It's very consistent throughout the entirety of the upper as well. So you can barely, as a user of the football boot, you can barely tell where the cutoff point is between the calfskin leather and the synthetic leather, which is super impressive. However, I think that the plushness of the forefoot that gives you this a little bit of a pillowy sensation, and the transition between that and the relatively thin midfoot on the lateral and medial side of the Icon 2, and the fact that it doesn't have knit, which is part of the lacing system, which we'll get into in a second. I think the upper on this one is better, actually, which is kind of wild because even though the leather quality of the Pure 3 is better, I do think that the upper of the Icon 2 is going to fit more people better. And that has to do with break-in time. That has to do with the fact that it's a standard U-throat tongue, etc., etc., etc. Now we move on to the heel. And from a construction standpoint, and as far as the way that they look, they're actually quite similar. Padding is in a really similar location. It's basically the same. And I don't know whether it's the general shape of the boot, because as you can see, the Icon 2 is actually quite a bit wider than the Pure 3. It seems to me, and the fact that the Icon 2 actually has a runner's knot, which is lovely. To me, the Icon 2 heel area fits better, even though they're basically the same material for the most part. Like the padding's in the same place. The upper or the heel area of the Icon is a little bit softer, in my opinion. Like you can kind of squish it and move it around, even though there's an internal heel counter on this one, but it's like that's a little bit stiffer as far as how it feels on feet as well compared to this one, which is a lot more mellow, and you've got the external heel counter as well. To me, heel area goes to the Icon 2 again, which is pretty crazy. That's then going to lead into the next category, which is general comfort. I realize if you have narrow feet, you're going to fit into the Copa Pure 3 a lot better, in my opinion, than I will, and you're not going to be as comfortable in these. So if you have narrow feet, I would guess that comfort's going to go for this one to narrow feet. But for wide foot, man, I've now worn this colorway, and I've worn the special edition. It's actually behind the boot wall in a duffel bag because I took it out to the field today. It is so incredibly comfortable straight out of the box, zero break-in time, and therefore comfort easily goes to the Icon 2. I just think it's going to fit more people. Plus you have the runner's knot, so it's going to be super adjustable depending on how your foot shape is and all that stuff. And it'll just give you like better lockdown in general. Performance. This for me was a tough one because I do think with the sole plate and the more locked in lacing system area, the synthetic, the type of synthetic leather they went with in the midfoot here does create, you could argue, a better performing football boot from a snapback perspective, from a lockdown perspective, all that. But the addition of the runner's knot here with just the insane customizability of this football boot makes for the performance of this so unique to each player. It's kind of like, for me, this is kind of a tie category because it's like, if you fit perfectly in both, the Pure 3 is going to be better for performance. But because this fits more people, the Icon 2, it's going to be a better football boot performance-wise for most people, and you're going to feel better on AG surfaces as well. So I'm going to give it a tie because objectively, I do think the Pure 3 has better tech and is going to be a better football boot in general if you fit in it. But the Icon 2 is right up there in terms of adjustability for most people, which is really cool. Lacing system area, I actually really like this knit lacing area. I think this would be really, really, really cool on the icon. I realize for obvious reasons why you wouldn't do it on the icon, because it's a football boot that's more, quote unquote classic, and it's one of those football boots that you just don't want to screw with, basically. But anyway, really love that lacing system area is going to the Pure 3, and I'm getting grass all over myself because they are dirty shoes. And finally, the X Factor. This is going to come to no surprise, but the winner of X Factor is the Icon 2. And this is me saying definitively that I would rather wear an Icon 2 now than wear the Copa Pure 3. The X Factor having been in America, these are $70 less expensive for a playing experience that is 98%. Yes, it's slightly different. It's going to feel a little bit different, but it is a leather football boot. This is like what I had hoped the New Balance 442 would have been, but better. It's like a better sole plate than the 442 ever had. It's the quality of the leather isn't quite to where the 442 was when it was a K leather, but the heel area is far superior, and the lacing system is better, in my opinion. Better tongue, better laces, all that stuff. So for me, the Icon 2 is the winner of this week's boot comparison. So now you have it. That was the thumbnail podcast. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. We still have some really, really fun stuff, including your questions, which we'll get to. Okay, next section is going to be a really, really quick Wear Your Boot Wednesday winner. I'm going to start adding this to the podcast as well. So this is every Wednesday. Submit what you are wearing. I'm going to put a picture on screen of the winner. The winner for this past week was Jonathan Sorantes, who also runs News Soccer Shop. Amazing human being. He's awesome. High top custom painted Hypervenom 3 DF in blue and white. It looks like he's either used a heavy filter or he has actually painted the blue like a darker, deeper blue, almost like the laces on this. So it's a much deeper blue as opposed to the really lovely light blue that the original was. And those are just an insane pair of football boots. So he tagged me, Wear Your Boot Wednesday. So on Wednesday, wherever you are in the world, tag me in a story of you actually wearing your football boots. None of this Wear Your Boot Wednesday crap. You got to actually be wearing your football boots. Wear Your Boot Wednesday for a chance to be featured here on the Boot Report. Next one is performance breakdown. So one of the things that I will get into in the review is this week I had the opportunity to review the Imatana laceless and laced boots. The laced boots are also in the duffel bag. These ones were really surprising to me because I wore the laced ones first, and you guys will get to see the review very, very soon of these football boots and the laced ones. I'll put out the laced ones first probably, because a lot of what I said in the laced model was sort of predisposing me to a lot of criticism about these, or so that's what I thought. When I put the laced model on, I was really not impressed with the way that the upper was so stiff and the heel didn't feel quite right. The sole plate's fine, but there was like pretty intense lace bite, and I still get some lace bite. I was out at the field today doing some photos and some short form stuff with those boots and these. And the amount of lace bite that I get in this area in the laced boots is kind of unacceptable in my opinion for a top end football boot that's supposed to be like custom to your foot. Because if you don't know about Imatana, I'll give you the quick rundown. German brand, basically have strayed away from any sort of sizing. So when you go on their website and order a pair of football boots, you actually have to order through a 3D app that scans your foot and gives them the exact measurements of and width and all that stuff of your feet. You get to pick your design, you get to pick your colors, and then you roll from there. For context, both the laced and the laceless model were just sent to me by Imatana. They DM'd me and they were like, hey, can we send you some boots? And I was like, I guess, but isn't your whole philosophy like custom football boots? These actually fit remarkably well. The laced ones also fit the shape of my foot pretty well, but they're just not where it's supposed to be. So from a performance breakdown perspective, I can't believe I'm saying this live on YouTube, on TV. The laceless football boots, for the first time ever, fit me and perform better, in my opinion, and have more of an X factor than the laced model does. So Imatana laceless for the win. Really cool, really interesting. You'll see more of that in the full review and play tests, which is all one in the same video now, which is cool. Now moving on to boot fit and tech. I wanted to mention one thing for this week. So I got a pair of Razor 1.5 in soft ground, as you can see, and also the SKX 1.5 in soft ground. You notice anything interesting about those two sole plates? Yeah, they're the same, which is really cool. The reason for that is because Skechers have decided, hey, everyone loves this carbon infused sole plate from the Razor, or at least a lot of people like it. Let's just throw the SG model onto this. Now, what's going to be interesting is number one, sizing. So with this sole plate and with the Razor, I actually go up to a 9.5 US from my normal 9 US. My thought and concern is that because the SKX in a normal 9 US actually fits me perfectly, on this last, is it going to be too small? So that's something that I am a little nervous about, if I'm honest. But I've done a comparison in the unboxing and well, I'm still working on the playtest, but in the unboxing and the playtest, you'll see more about these. But very, very interesting in terms of boot fit and tech, because putting the same sole plate on a couple of your different silos theoretically should be lazy, but because the SKX, I've actually got a pair here as well, the regular SKX sole plate is pretty meh in my opinion. I think it's actually a great thing that they went for the Razor sole plate in SG on the SKX. And I'm also curious to know, I'll have to do some more research on this, but I don't know if Kane is actually wearing, I think he would be wearing the same one, or he's wearing a custom sole plate. So he's either wearing the Razor sole plate, which is sick, or he's wearing a custom sole plate that they've come up for him. So that is performance breakdown. Now in terms of, boot fit and tech. So boot tech that this week. I'll get better at these categories, but you guys will understand as we move on. Okay, so boot culture and trends. I'm really excited for this particular section of today's video and podcast because I want to shout out a few creators who I have seen. And I don't mean creators as in visual creators, because they are visual creators in terms of being on Instagram and creating content on Instagram. But these are artist creators. These are people who create physical products who do such an amazing job. Now, the Absolute Mega Ride Lifestyle that I mentioned is a really cool collab that got me thinking about two different creators. So excuse me if I mispronounce your names. Jakob Werner, who is JW Studios on Instagram, and Patrick Margiel, who is Margiello, MARGIELLO _ on Instagram. Both of these guys are creating boot uppers with street style outsoles. So something like a Blundstone bottom, or a Converse, or an Air Force One, or a Air Max One outsole with the Ronaldinho Tiempo upper, or a F50 upper, or I saw who Jacob, I'm not sure. JW Studios did one the other day that was I'm not sure what the actual shoe bottom is, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a Vibram outsole. It's like a very, very robust looking outsole with those really cool off-white Predator 24 Elites that Bellingham wore that had they were all white with the black tongue. I'll put some pictures up on screen, but those were so cool. And he created them as like street style shoes. So it got me thinking, number one, it's a great way to express the style of football kits and other fashion. So you're mixing like passion with football boots with sort of street style and stuff. And obviously those have always really gone hand in hand, particularly with footballers at the pro level. You saw guys like David Beckham get really famous for obviously other reasons other than just his style. But one of the reasons he got so famous was because he was wearing some of the most audacious things that were really cool and trendy and fun and iconic in a lot of ways. And now we have these amazing artists creating collaborations between modern day football boots and some retro football boots, I guess, as well, but with modern style and and fashion, which I think is so cool. So a few combos that I would like to see. Leave your combos down in the description box below. I think Tiempo Legend 5 upper, especially one like the Ronaldinho Tiempos behind me, with the Air Max 1 sole plate. So Patrick created what used to be the R10. It was like Tiempo R10s with that sort of diamond stitch pattern on the toe box, very similar to the Tiempo 5s. He did one of those in black and maroon red, like they did, but on the Air Max 1 outsole. So I want to see a Tiempo 5 because I think the Tiempo 5 would look super, super epic on that Air Max 1 outsole. I want to see the Mizuno Morelia Wave Cup Sala, or the Mizuno Wave Cup Sala, which I have down here, which is the Wave Cup SS Japan with the tongue upper, leather upper, with an Air Force 1 outsole. That would be kind of wild and cool. Then I want to see the Copa Mundial upper with an SL72 outsole, which is one of Adidas' like kind of old school, old 70s running shoe bottoms, basically. I think that would look really sick. So those are my three. What would your three be? Let me know down in the comment section below. All right. Market report. We are going to talk about some market trends, which are really cool. And there are still a lot of Vapor 15s and 16s available. I think what we'll see with Adidas as well, with some of the Predators, the Copas in particular, and some of the F50s, is that we're going to see all of those top-end boots go for a ridiculously low price point on the secondary and tertiary markets. You're going to see boot dealers on Instagram selling top-end Vapors and Predators and Superflies and all those stuff, and Adidas and Nike boots, and even Puma boots, but that's not because there's too many. It's because they're not very good. Adidas and Nike in particular, you're going to see a lot of those drop on the resale market, even special editions. My comment would be, I think the new Predator Mania that's coming out in red, sure, it's going to be cool and everyone's going to buzz about it for about a week, and then no one's going to give a shit because they've already released 900 other Predator Manias. So it's not special anymore, and they're not numbering these boots either. Not to say that you have to number a regular release colorway. That's not what I'm saying. But there are so many of the same pairs of football boots on the resale market. It's like, is Adidas basically creating shit colorways to boost sales for Teamgeist? Who knows? But they don't need to do that. If they didn't create those Cosmic Victory, whatever the hell they're called, Celestial Victory and whatever the other Victory and Polar Victory and all those things, they wouldn't need to do all of those, and Teamgeist would still sell out instantaneously. So I don't know why the hell that's going on. But as far as a resale market trend, that is still flying high because I see those boots all the time. I want to highlight two really cool boots that have surfaced on the resale market. One, and yes, this is shout out for these two creators, one of whom I've done business with, one of whom I have not. And if you want to be featured and you're a boot reseller, let me know. These guys I found these, so I'm just doing this because I think they're interesting. But there is a pair of Phantom Vision 1s in the, do I have it here somewhere? Oh yeah, they're directly behind me. You can see them like right there. They are the all white, black accent, and gold numbered Phantom Venoms. These are the Phantom Visions, and you'll see a picture up on screen, don't worry. But there were only 1,000 pairs of these made, and they are so cool. They're a US 10, and they are from Boot Nostalgia. So Boot Nostalgia put those up, I think 2 or 3 days ago now. I don't know if they're still up, but it is what it is. The next one that I want to put up is, or sort of highlight that I thought was so freaking cool, is BW Boots UK, BC Boots UK, who does a pretty exclusively player edition boots. So boots that actually players wore. BC Boots UK did my John Stones GT ones. The boots that John Stones wore in the Champions League in 2021. Anyway, but very, very cool dealer. So we've done business before. And BC Boots UK posted a pair of Totti special edition or specially made custom Tiempo Legend 5 Elites. They've got a fold over tongue, which didn't exist on the normal Tiempo 5. Obviously, they made one for him right there in the black gladiator colorway, but this was like one of the this was actually a colorway that I personally had, but he wore this at Roma, and he wears the same size as me as well in a US 9, which is just, I am so tempted to get these, but they are really expensive, and they are just one of the coolest pair of player editions that we've seen. And yeah, they're a piece of art, and they're so sick. So BC Boots UK, pair of Tiempo Legend 5 Tottis, the actual match-worn player editions, which is very, very cool as well. Some stock availability and some drops that I want to talk about as well is TLSS is going worldwide. So these are the TLSS Striker, the Tajin Synthetic of their 4 models, technically, if you count the whatever their laceless version of this is called something else. I don't know why they just don't call it a Striker laceless, but regardless, this is a very, very good football boot. The leather model, which the video has actually already dropped of the Tactician, is also amazing. These are tech forward, very, very comfortable football boots. A really cool and upcoming brand that's only been around for a few years, and they are going to take the market by storm as soon as they figure out worldwide shipping, which world's first coming to the Boot Report. This is yeah, they're coming worldwide. So be prepared. Every other brand should be shivering right now because TLSS is going to take over, which is very cool. Sokito seems to have stock of certain colorways, blackout and whiteout, really. Their limited run of the really, really disgusting green colorway, whatever the hell that was. It looks like a petri dish of germs. Those are completely sold out. The launch colorway is completely sold out. And then they have a few sizes in white and black. It is a bummer because I do think they had so much hype. There was so much buzz about them. And then they sort of just like, what are they doing now? Like, what are they releasing? I realize they're probably developing a second silo at some point that isn't one of, I think they're Sokito, is it called the Devista? Devista something? I can't remember. I've never tried it before, but it's like a vegan leather boot. And it looks fine. It looks very similar to like the Volush boots, which are out of Indonesia, I think, that I've tried before. And yeah, those ones are nothing special. The Scudetta is obviously a very, very good football boot, but limited sizing, which is kind of a bummer. So I don't know if there's supply chain issues or what's going on there, but it seems like they don't have as much availability as they have beforehand, which is a bummer. And then we also have, I did see Adler have a few smaller sizes pop up in their Horenzo series. So this is a Horenzo, and then you can see up there right here is a custom pair of Yatagarashus. The Yatagarashu is completely sold out, and the Jurumacon, I believe, is also sold out, and the Yamatokyo is also sold out, I think. As of the filming of this video, that's when I checked last. But the Horenzo still has some smaller sizes, and I'm talking like 24 and a half, 25, 25 and a half. So go get on those Horenzos. Very, very cool. Oh my God. That's a lot of talking. Adler Horenzo. Okay. Questions. Here we go. We are going to talk questions. This is one of my favorite parts of every episode. You guys can also ask your questions and get a chance to be featured here. noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. And you can go and listen to the latest episode, and you can also go submit your questions, which is great. Okay. Coming first from McKenna. Hi, McKenna. Do you think the new Hypervenoms will be as goated as the first? So yes, I was going to talk about this in a week or two, but there is a new Hypervenom that's been leaked to be coming, and I don't know if I don't know what generation they're going to be doing. I don't know what the sole plate is going to be. If they do, like they did with the Maestri, if they go a 1-to-1 remake of either Hypervenom 3 or Hypervenom 1, it will be incredible, and they will sell for ridiculous money on the resale market. and or on the primary market, like from Nike or from Ultra, they will be impossible to get. So, do I think they're going to be as goated? No, probably not, because in period, those boots were so beloved and amazing. But a 1-to-1 remake would be pretty cool. Or if they did something like a Hypervenom 1 upper with the Hypervenom 3 sole plate, that would be kind of cool as well. Not as goated, unfortunately, but it would be cool to see a 1-to-1 remake. So thank you, McKenna. Matt asks, best moment of your football career? This is a great question. I would probably say, I mean, winning the national title with Flower City was pretty freaking cool. That was probably like the peak for me, was winning a national title at a pro level. You get a big trophy, a diamond ring, like the whole 9 yard. Like it really is amazing. And it was the conclusion to my pro career, at least for now. And that will always carry, that whole year really will carry a really special place in my heart and my body because of how stressful that year was, both on a mental level and on a physical level. Lots of travel, getting stuck in hotels and in airports overnight, and just it's like lower level professional soccer is a grind. And that year in particular in Nisa was insane. So for me, that was definitely the best moment in my career, winning the national title. That was pretty cool. Aaron asks, do you think that boot brands should bring back a premium leather version of popular boots that come in 1 or 2 colors that could have a higher price point? This is a fabulous question, Aaron. So I do have behind me, oh yeah, the Rotero and the David Beckham Predators, which is the leather model. It's just this, it's the same design, relatively the same construction, all the same materials, except for obviously the upper is leather. They sold for slightly higher money and they sold out almost instantaneously. Now, would I like to see them, and I'm just using Predator as an example because they've actually done this already. If they were to do, let's say, like they did with the F50 several years ago, they make a synthetic F50 and then they do a leather F50 that maybe comes every other colorway drop. So let's say, you've got a launch in January, in March, like every other month, you would get the leather edition every other month, right? So every third month or every second month. That would be really cool. And I think those boots would, number one, do really well in general. I think people would absolutely love them. And I think that it opens up opportunities for brands like New Balance or brands like Under Armour or brands like Skechers to come in and do something amazing and then discover that, oh, what do you know? The consumer base actually wants leather football boots. There's a reason why Mizuno is gaining in popularity. The cool thing is, I would say the one caveat is that because boot brands like Nike and Adidas, well, Adidas not so much but Nike in particular has gone away from, and Puma have gone away from this K leather or leather period. It gives room for brands like TLSS and Sokito, although they're vegan, so I don't know, they're a whole can of worms. Potentially Imatana, although that's a little bit more challenging with custom football boots, but you get what I'm saying, right? Could Skechers come along and create a K leather football boot that absolutely blows everybody else out of the water? Yeah, they could, but they're probably not going to. But that's amazing because it gives room for brands like Adler and TLSS and some other Indonesian brands like Specs. And anyway, it gets really exciting. But to answer your question, Aaron, I think yes, they should. They absolutely should. A leather model of every single, imagine like twice a year, every 6 months, we got a full tech craft pack from Nike that wasn't just like they did with the Magista, like the knit with the leather. It was like, no, we're actually going to create a leather Phantom just straight up. Or they do what they did with the GX, and I guess this is kind of similar, so maybe I'm coming back on my words, but what they did with the, where the hell are they? Oh, they're up here. Those, the GX the GX Hypervenoms. Instead of doing, let's say, the GX with grip knit, you do a fly knit or an atom knit base GX with a K leather upper on top of it, like a single piece of, like, that would be sick. But they're never going to do it because they're too busy thinking in their own, I don't know. Yeah, Nike's got issues. But anyway, Robin, with the amount of turf fields there are in comparison to grass fields, why do you think brands don't offer more AG options? That's a good question. I'd imagine that in the future, that's going to change. You saw, especially to a boot that should have been received a lot better, given how good it is, a lot of people, at least in my comment section, and I saw just the vibe online, people were saying things like, well, I would get it if it was AG. Oh, I would get it if it had conical studs. Oh, I would get it if it was better and not as aggressive. I think brands are going to catch on to that. The reason why they don't is because, aesthetically speaking, most people want to see this in an ad. Most people want to see this in a photo. It looks aggressive. It looks epic. It looks super pro and cool and elite and all that stuff. And yet, the majority of users are like, that looks great. It makes me want to buy, but like, I want the option to buy a conical stud. That is why I think a brand like TLSS is absolutely going to crush, because guess what? These are conical studs. You can wear them on AG totally fine, but it's a really sick looking sole plate. It's reflective, it's aggressive, it's all the things that Asics and Mizuno have been doing forever with their conical stud pattern, but with conical studs, right? So it's going to be good. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to. Carlos asks, do you think that more companies will continue to invest R&D into reducing these injury risks, or is there too much focus on the common areas of boot innovation like speed, control, or comfort? Following up on that, do you believe that injury prevention focus will ever return to marketing over the more exciting aspects of boot innovation? Well, to answer your second question, they never have been focused on actual injury prevention. That's never been a thing. Other than the only brand, and not even major brand, but the only sub brand that has ever actually focused on injury prevention, oddly enough, is the Australian cohort of Asics. So they have done things like 5mm and 10mm heel lift that help with reducing knee injuries. They do things like anatomical sole plates and extra little arch support stuff, and like there's a lot going on with the Asics in Australia. It makes the boots not look as good, and that's why they don't sell as good, unfortunately. I think Asics Japan probably does the best job because they're making boots that fit incredibly comfortably and ergonomically. However, it's one of those things, they just aren't as popular, and or they don't license that particular boot to the rest of the world, which is a shame because they are so good. But in terms of R&D into reducing injury risk, I don't think so. Although I want to have a really positive and happy view of these big companies, I don't think they really care about the injury prevention and risk. I think they care about top line. And so when they create an AG boot, sure, there is a... But here's my thing. I don't have faith in the big companies like everyone else might have, and maybe everyone else doesn't, I don't know. But I don't have faith in them because when they create an AG sole plate, i.e. something like this AG sole plate is not even half as good as their FG sole plate. And so they've put absolutely zero R&D into something like this, or seemingly very little in terms of quality and comfort and stuff. And so for me, it's like, okay, the consumer is asking for it. We'll create a cheap solution and sell a bunch of them and get rich. Like that's kind of, and I'm not trying to sound jaded or anything, because as you guys know, I love football boots from all the brands. But it is a little annoying that they don't create really, really well thought out and good AG sole plates. So that's kind of annoying. So to answer your question, Carlos, no, I don't think so. Kartik asks, do you think that today's football boot companies focus more on making new colorways rather than improving boots or solving major boot problems? Short answer, yes. Alexis, last question, asks, when it comes to solo training sessions, what are your go-to pre-workout meal? Do you take any supplements like creatine, magnesium, etc.? Yeah. To preface this question, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not certified in any sort of medical field at all. So this is what works for me. And I do not recommend anything. You should go consult a doctor, yada, 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 yada. I usually like to eat, if I'm doing a session really early in the morning, sometimes I'll do that session fasted, but most of the time not. Usually I'll eat like some carbs beforehand because oftentimes with my triathlon training, I'll have like an early morning workout, go to the field, and then have a late evening workout as well. And that's a lot of physical activity for one day. And so I'll eat pretty much exclusively carbs prior to fuel me throughout the session. And then with maybe a little bit of protein or something, even if it's something like peanut butter, which has some good fats in it and good protein, that has worked for me. And then post training is like really heavy on the protein. And then once you're getting ready for the next session of the day or whatever it is, that's another carb heavy or carb loading or whatever you want to call it. In terms of supplements, I take like an allergy medication because I've got an EpiPen for freaking pollen, which is annoying. And then I take I take a like a magnesium, vitamin D, and calcium that's like all in one. I do take creatine as well, just for muscle function and support and brain function and support. And then what else I got? A B vitamin and some vitamin C. So it's like pretty standard stuff. It's like very casual. And that's what I felt works for me really well, but it may not work for you. So again, as I said before, this is just what works for me. All right, guys, we are way over time. Thank you for listening to the Boot Report. My name is Noah Cavanaugh. As always, be awesome. Take care. I'll see y'all in the next video.